hop into this first game of NYK versus Lightning, and we will get started with that. Game one will be on Mech Depot. It is a PVZ, so our first Protoss player, as you mentioned, of the day. Different matchup finally. And while I am a Terran player myself, so I perhaps have a little bit more expertise in the Protoss match or in the Terran matchups. Excuse me. PVZ is definitely a fun matchup to get from time to time. So here we go, loading into game one on Mech Depot.
And indeed, here we are in the upper right-hand corner of Mech Depot. In the orange as Protoss, this is Lightning. And indeed, there he is, spinning around in all of his Protoss glory.
And in the bottom left-hand corner, as the pink Zerg, we have Storm Academy's NYK.
All right, so we're getting further in the tournament, closer and closer to finding out which players will advance on to the final Swiss round before the actual offline Kings of the North. Always look forward to that event, and I think we were talking a little bit earlier, like you don't actually get a chance to see too many offline qualifiers for events, just because most of the time you head all over the world and have your online qualifiers, and then for the actual event you bring the players together. But Kings of the North is a little bit special, and so we're going to have offline qualifiers here. You guys saw pictures of the venue earlier on, and now you get to see the players play the games after seeing them in person earlier.
Right. I think one nice thing about this offline qualifier, and I think what they're going for here, is to kind of strengthen the local scene here in Toronto. There are a lot of solid players that have come from this area over the years. I know, people like Masa is a local, and he's, I believe, been invited into the main tournament. We've got players like Huck, who live in the Toronto area. I know No Regret is, from a bit north of Toronto. And I think there are a couple more. BioIce, of course, who is playing in this tournament. Scarlet is, I don't think, quite from the Toronto area, but not too far away. So we do have some quite strong talent in this area, and LAN qualifiers like this do allow, some of those up-and-coming players to perhaps show their stuff, get a chance to make it to that next stage that may have not gotten invited otherwise. So a really nice thing here at the Kings of the North LAN qualifier.
All right, let's go ahead and talk about the opening builds for both of our players. Nexus, or Gateway Expand, rather, for our Protoss Lightning. And on the other side, a third hatchery already out there before pool, I might add. So, well, it's going to finish, or it's going to be started before the pool is finished. Ta-da! That's not how you say build orders at all, but that's the way I'm going to do it.
Yeah, one thing to note is, we did have a little bit of a delayed expansion for Lightning. It looks like he did get that core up before the expansion, which we don't usually see. We do have a really early evolution chamber as well for NYK with that +1 melee getting started. So it's going to be pretty heavy on the Ling Bane here in the opening, I imagine, with his +1 melee. While meanwhile, Lightning has started a Stargate at the back of his.
Yeah, Stargate coming out. We've seen more and more Stargate play, less of these very gateway-heavy pushes out on the map. Feels like more and more for Protoss, they are not going for a lot of committed aggression with these big pushes until they get way later into Archon Immortal. But the Stargate allows you lots of flexibility. You can go out and harass with a bunch of oracles, and for a while, actually, recently, even as much as a month ago, mass 3 Stargate Oracle was the play. Now, I'm not sure if we're going to see quite that this time around, but certainly getting started with the first Phoenix on the way.
Yeah, as you mentioned, that sort of mass Stargate play is something that has kind of gone in and out of favor. We have been seeing a bit of it lately, but yeah, we have Phoenix is coming out, so he will be skipping that early Oracle, just going to go for some Overlord hunting, and then maybe a bit of harass once he gets another Phoenix or two out. And it actually is going to be an Oracle followed by the first Phoenix, so perhaps doing things in a little bit of a different order than some players might. But, of course, this will allow him to clean up these Overlords a little quicker, maybe limit his opponent's scouting. Perhaps he has some sort of follow-up plan that, he won't want his opponent to get wind of. But he will kill that first Overlord and then move over to kill another.
Yeah, this is a little bit strange. This is sort of like when you, as a Terran, where you go for the early Viking. It's like, surprise, you lose a couple overlords. Haha, I killed your overlords. And it's, everybody laughs. But it's the reason you don't see this a lot is because it sacrifices a lot of early harassment potential from the Oracle, and especially now that he's committing to a second Oracle now on the way, it's like, well, both of those are just going to be a little bit less effective because you've given the Zerg player plenty of time to get these 4 crawlers up, get queens in all of his expansions, and it's just not going to see probably a lot of damage done.
Right, and the first Oracle does actually fall at the third base,
Yeah.
picking off only a pair of drones before dying to that Queen and Spore. So a little bit of a sloppy control from Lightning, losing that first Oracle for very little gain. Meanwhile, I mean, Lightning is starting to establish his third base, so, is going to be playing this into a longer game. He's continuing to build another Oracle, so, with his first, he's actually gone for 3 Oracles, so he's going to, perhaps have another chance to deal a little bit of damage, or maybe we will see that sort of Oracle-centric mid-game that we, have been seeing from time to time from Protosses lately.
Yep. I think a guy that I saw do that first was like a classic over here in Korea. He goes up to 3 bases, and then once the 3 bases are, I love the probes just running the gauntlet right through the stop hold position Zerglings. That's pretty cute. He goes up to 3 bases. Once the 3 bases are up and running, then you just non-stop pump Oracles, and I want to see him be active with these Oracles, but it looks like he's pooling them for now.
Right, perhaps he's just trying to keep this hidden if he is going for that Oracle centric. Yeah, he is going up to a second Stargate, and that does give a pretty heavy indicator that he'd like to, make these Oracles a strong part of his mid-game composition. Now adding a third, so it's going to be, mostly Oracles and other Stargate units with a few Adepts on the ground to perhaps hold off these Lings. He is actually struggling to hold off these Lings a little bit at the third now. No overcharge left on this Mothership core, but it looks like it will be just enough to keep the third base alive. And, I think he traded out okay there. The Lings did kill quite a number of Gateway units, but I think at the end of the day, you're okay with that if you're Lightning, keeping this third base up and mining.
Right. It's pretty much anything to save the third base. And that was a big committal from NYK to come in there and try to take it out and then fail. Now, I mean, he has taken out quite a few workers. He's up 15 in the worker supply, NYK is. So he's probably feeling pretty good with his own economy. But there's a problem because the Oracle numbers reach a critical mass where they can just roll over anything. So it doesn't matter how good your economy is if you lose the first little engagement against the Oracles, because then they just snowball out of control. They're one-shotting your hatcheries. It's like, things are getting a little rough.
Right, so NYK is going for Hydras here, which is sort of the standard Zerg composition with these Ling Veins these days. But I don't think he knows that he's going to be up against this Protoss composition of mass Oracles essentially, and if his Hydras get caught off guard a little bit, and he, as you mentioned, that first engage is so important, where if you lose that Hydra count and it gets reset, suddenly there are 6 Oracles on the map uncontested with more on the way, and it just spirals out of control. So it'll be interesting to see how this first engage with the Hydras does go as they move out towards the center of the map. It looks like they'll probably move over towards the third base, and this could be could end up being a big mistake if Lightning manages to catch all of these Hydras off guard and get the jump on them with the Oracles.
Yeah, it would be a very big pickoff. There's just not a lot of Hydras out there. It looks like there's going to be about 15, something along those lines. And the Oracles still have not been revealed. They are juicing up with so much energy. And so there's a couple of ways you can play this Oracle style, where you snowball them one by one, and then 3 by 3 as they come out of the Stargates, and you're dealing damage with them all the time. And that's sort of like a tug of war, but this is going to be like the giant sledgehammer that you swing down on your opponent's head and just take him out in one shot.
Right.
It's going to be very scary to deal with, especially because for now, NYK should know he just has not seen inside that main base for a long time.
Right, and it actually does look like we have a few lurkers coming out for NYK, which will lower the Hydra count even more, and this could be, in fact, his undoing, as we do have the Oracle squad coming over here towards the third. And this is just not nearly enough Hydras as the Oracles move in. They're going to jump on top of the Hydras, and while the ground army of Lightning will fall, I think this is enough Oracles that really these Lings will not pose much of a threat at all, as long as he can get the Oracles in the right position. Banelings falling left and right to all of these Oracles. Lightning going for the 4th base, but as we see, these Pulsar Beams are just making such quick work of the Lings that the 4th base might not even fall, and it does actually get canceled, but at what cost? NYK now has a supply disadvantage from the significant advantage that he had before, and all of these Oracles are still alive. Now, it will be difficult for Lightning to do too much counter damage as the Oracles don't have a lot of energy, but that definitely went quite well for him.
Yeah, I actually feel like sacrificing even that entire army and yeah, just that entire army is a big win for NYK, because now not only does he know about the Oracles, so he can build lots of Spore Crawlers, lots of Hydras and Queens back at home, but the Oracles are out of energy, and that means that I feel like an underrated limitation of Oracles. When they run in, they kill everything. Everybody's like, "Oh my God, they're so strong," but then they just can't do anything. Now, this is the follow-up. This is where we get a chance to see the full might of these Oracles come into play, because they have regained a little bit of energy, so they probably have enough to kill this hatchery.
Right, we do have 16 Oracles moving over towards this hatchery. I'm not sure if he will activate all of them to just kill the hatchery, or if he'll go for the army. That is a pretty significant number of Hydras and Queens here. He does get a Revelation off, so he will have an idea of what is out there to face. But, you know, he keeps building these Oracles, but I'm not sure how this is going to work long term. He is adding a Forge and a number of gateways, so perhaps planning to add a little bit more bulk to his army. But, you know, I'm not quite sure if he's going to manage to make good enough use of all of these Oracles as the game continues.
You know, I just want to talk about unit control here a little bit, Poke Bunny. I've been playing a lot of StarCraft Remastered lately. It's basically been my life for the last 2 weeks or so. And, you know, they have limitations on hotkey numbers. So you can only hotkey 12 units per hotkey. And it's like, okay, well, that means you have to just use a lot more of them. For these Oracles, there's just one hotkey with the Oracles on them. They travel around in a big ball. And when you're trying to do harassment with a ball, when you're sliding your ball into your opponent's army, you don't get optimal surface area. And you saw that right there when the Hydras are trying to funnel around this corner. And it's just not a good idea to run the ball of Adepts into that. You split your Adepts up, or not your Adepts, your Oracles up, and then you can attack them from more of like a concave position. It just makes it much easier to engage Hydras when they're funneling towards you. And I just feel like that's a big limitation of just having everything, like all your army on one giant hotkey.
Right. I mean, on the flip side, the advantage is, you know, it's easier to time your engagements right. You know, you have everything going in at once. You have all those pulsar beams activating right away. You know, there's no risk of, you know, kind of missing, you know, one control group or something, which, you know, for example, like as a bio player in Brood War against Zerg, you know, you might miss a stim on one part of your army.
Yeah.
And only stim, you know, some of the Marines, but not all of them. So we have no risk of that here with the Oracles, of course.
Definitely trade-offs, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, on NYK's side, he's pretty much maxed out here. He's got pretty much mostly Hydras and Queens with a few Infestors now added, and these don't have energy quite yet, but when they do, this has the potential to make the fight completely one-sided if he does get off the right fungal.
Yeah, that fungal will be very, very important. Now, I'm actually really excited. What is your take, Poke Bunny? Because I know the fungal is going to be changing here in a little bit once the new patch hits, to where now it has a bigger radius, but it only slows. Is that going to be better or worse for dealing with things like this Mass Oracle?
I feel like it will be worse for dealing with the Mass Oracle, because what you really want when you hit a fungal on these Oracles is to use it to fight. You know, it's less about the damage and the area as it is about forcing your opponent to fight in a certain location. And if you can keep some of those Oracles locked down with fungal, you know, most of them won't be firing upon the Hydras. And he does get a fungal off, but here come the Oracles. And as I said, you know, the fungals are managing to keep a lot of them back, but they are still managing to plow forward for the most part. And they will fall, but they did clear out a lot of the Hydras. So I'm not quite sure. You know, I feel like NYK definitely won out in that engagement, as the Oracles were pretty much the entirety of Lightning's army. But he did kill out a decent Hydra count, so it might be difficult for NYK to continue pushing forward here, but he is still going to try.
Wow, watching Queens walk through a time warp is the most sad thing I've seen all day. Yeah, they just never make it through. Well, finally they will, but like you said, yeah, there's just not a lot of Hydras left. The Transfusion just never came that last fight. I'm not sure if he just sacked his Hydras for no reason, but the Queens will stay alive forever against anything. And even though there's carriers and Archons on the way, it doesn't matter because they won't be here in time to save the base.
Right, I feel like this carrier transition is just coming a little bit too late. He went up to 25 or so oracles, and once those oracles fell, that was just such an absolutely ridiculous amount of army value to lose that everything else is just these cheap units like the Adepts and Zealots, and I'm not sure if on their own they will really be enough. We have 3 Archons, as you mentioned, joining the fray, as well as some carriers on the way, but they're just not going to be quite in time as NYK continues pushing forward. And we are going to have the final engage here. Fungal's going off on that giant clump of Adepts, which will make this fight even more one-sided, and NYK will roll through and take game number 1.
Wow, congratulations to NYK. It looked like that was actually pretty hard fought. I wanted to see maybe a little bit more decisive use of those oracles. We saw them pooled and held, gently cradled in the main. Lots of commitment to pushing overlords away and keeping them a secret. And then they come out not to kill bases, but to kill a lurker push. And okay, you killed the army, but now your oracles are just not that effective, and it gives your opponent just a giant roadmap. How do I beat this player? Everything that counters oracles.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely true. It definitely seemed like his strategy was a little bit one-dimensional, relying on just these oracles. And as you said, the reveal of the oracles on that first army, I think it was good. I think it went well. He wiped out that whole army decisively, and even though he did have to cancel at 4th base, he didn't really lose much of value in that first engage. So he kept all those oracles, but then he just kind of sat around with them even longer. And I feel like what he had to do, perhaps, I'm obviously no expert in this style myself, is as soon as those oracles had energy again, he had to start going for bases, trying to keep the army size of his opponent down, or even just go for a faster transition to carriers, maybe just, the 10 oracles to take out the first push, and then go for a faster transition to something a little beefier that, perhaps isn't countered quite as easily once your opponent knows what it's going on.
Yeah, I mean, even if you know ahead of time you're going to go into carriers afterwards, like at some point between like minute 5 and minute 15, you hit like maybe a +1 air upgrade, or like you get something so that you're not just all in on these oracles. So it's a cool strategy. We got a chance to see that in game 1, but I don't think we're going to see the same thing in game number 2. Probably a much different style, since that's kind of something that only works maybe 1 or 2 times until players kind of figure out what your style is.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely not a strategy that works nearly as well when your opponent is, sort of has it in the back of his mind. But at the same time, maybe the biggest surprise is that he would use it twice in a row. But we are loading into game number 2 on Odyssey. We've got Lightning versus NYK. Game 2 on Odyssey.
Oh boy. Well, here we go. It is going to be a Protoss versus Zerg, just like the first game in the series, Poke Money. Oh my God. Wow. Here we go. In the bottom right-hand corner of Odyssey, as our orange Protoss player, he is Rival Gaming's Lightning.
Yeah, going for those mass oracles in game number 1, but not quite panning out. In the top left-hand corner, as the pink Zerg for Psystorm Academy, perhaps just a bit inactive for Psystorm Academy right now, it is NYK.
Yeah, there we go. Every time I hear NYK, I think of the Counter-Strike commentator. I'm like, wow, he's really good at StarCraft too. Of course, it's a different player, but the best part about watching this has been seeing players adapt and seeing very different styles in the first 2 series we saw. And for me, watching this is people want to complain about like which players are allowed to play in which tournaments, like how you decide who plays in which qualifier. I know guys like Stefano, he plays for lots of like African qualifiers because he's not, even though he kind of might act super French, he's not necessarily originally from there. And for things like this, it's literally like, can you show up to a LAN center and play? And this is how I first got into esports. Like, my friend shows me Brood War, and I'm just like, oh, let's play this game, and I just get absolutely destroyed. And then I find out that like there's a professional scene, and I'm like, okay, well, how do I do that? Well, you go down to your local LAN center. They have a StarCraft tournament. I tried that out. It was really bad, but it's sort of the most fundamental version of how esports works, and it's cool to see it in action here. Limited not just by, are you a Grandmasters player? Are you, on a team playing in a league or something? No. You just show up and play it. Maybe you're just way worse than everybody else, but at least it's a fun experience.
Right, yeah, I do think this qualifier was completely open to anyone. Maybe they limited the number of signups as, a result of space or time limitations, but we have players of all, pretty wide range of skill, still a lot of really strong players here. As I mentioned, the majority of the bracket is like those high master and grandmaster players, like these two. But, if you wanted to come out and just try your hand at some StarCraft, I think you would be able to. But in the meantime, we've got some opening builds coming out for both players. For the Protoss, we've seen another gateway expand. No tech has been committed to yet, although it looks like he's positioning to build a tech building, which will be a Twilight Council. So a little bit of a different opener this time around. While on the Zerg side, we just have the 3 bases being set up and drones being built.
Surprise! Yeah, this is going to look very similar to our last game, and except for the tech path that has been chosen. So with the Twilight just about to complete here in a little bit, I kind of want to know what we're going to see. I would expect maybe a Glaives Adept all-in timing coming up. If he wants to go for that, you're going to have to see a bunch of gateways thrown down here in just a second if that is indeed the path. And it looks like, because there aren't a lot of minerals banked up, that will probably not be the path.
It is going to be a Dark Shrine, and one thing to note is that since Lightning did get this Mothership Core and the Twilight right away, it doesn't have a Robo to go along with this, so it won't be a DT drop as we have so frequently seen. It will be a little bit of an earlier just DT, I don't know if I want to say harass or pressure. It's a little more aggressive than that, perhaps. Trying to get those DTs in as early as possible for some serious damage. But we do have a Robo coming up now, and it will be finishing a little bit before the Dark Shrine, but not with enough time to get that Warp Prism out for those DTs. Yeah.
So it is coming out. A lot of times what you'll see is not necessarily you try to get damage done with the DTs. You can't, mostly just Archon drops, but you're right, it's a little bit out of order, so we don't know exactly what is the play. Doing a good job denying the scouting in game 1, not so much here in game 2, as this one Overlord will see absolutely everything.
Yeah, the Dark Shrine does get spotted out. We have a couple more gateways coming out, along with the Warp Prism, but it doesn't look like it will be able to catch NYK off guard.
Nope, certainly not. Everything safe and sound in both players' bases for now. We get the chance to see whose opening is better. There's already Spore Crawlers complete in all the bases. It's just locking it down. NYK looks like he's in a great spot. Only really drones on the way, and of course lots of creep tumors already being spread across the map.
Yeah, we actually do have the Warp Prism moving out on the map, and there haven't been any DTs warped in, so it looks like you will go the more conservative route and just go for the drop, maybe making the Archon straight away. But behind that, we see 3 gateways in total at the natural, as well as 4 in the main, so he's going up to 7 gateways. Although now he is taking his 3rd, so I guess it won't be quite an all-in push, but it will be perhaps some aggression coming out with so many of these gateways being created so early, along with the resonating glaives.
Now, crucially, should be noted that there's about 1,000 minerals banked up here for NYK. I'm not exactly sure what he plans to do with that, if that was being saved for something, but maybe macro slipping just a little bit. For Lightning, it kind of makes a lot of sense because he has a bunch of warp gates, so we can just warp in a ton of units all at once and probably try to spend that bank down pretty quickly.
Yeah, NYK, it looks like he does have a few larvae at his hatcheries and is not using them. So I think he might have just been waiting for this Hydralisk den to finish, as it now just did. Maybe we'll be making a large swell of Hydras here any second. But as we still see no swell of units, as Lightning warps in some Adepts and moves forward with these Archons and Adepts, he's going to need something to defend pretty soon here.
Yeah, keep in mind there is no third base for Lightning. He is just going for it at this point. No probes in production. It is just about this push. There's no Banelings on the ground. It's just stuff that dies to his stuff. That's pretty good for Lightning. He's going to shred through everything. GG.
Wow. Yeah, a little bit of a surprise there as Lightning, didn't look like it was too dangerous of a push, but he just managed to catch NYK off guard just a little bit there and did finish him off. I mean, we saw, as you mentioned right before the push, NYK had quite a bank, and even when his Hydra didn't finish, I was expecting maybe he'd be busting out, 12 or 14 Hydras as soon as that finished because of all this banked money. But he just made Lings, even though his Hydra den was finished, and perhaps they do produce a little bit faster, but they were no match for the Archons and Adepts.
And he's playing with glue on his hands, man. Just can't move fast enough to spend all that money. Didn't actually work out for him in game 2. So game 1, interesting strategy with the Oracles. Game 2, decides to go for that big all in. And he goes out and he's like, I'm gonna put down third base. No, straight up all in immediately after that. So I liked it. Really potent. You saw the Dark Templar run forward, and it was cool to see NYK see, okay, well, I need to defend that. We pull back, and we're ready to go. But then the follow-up with the Mass Adepts was just a little bit too strong. So that's going to take us to a game number 3. So I think this is our first game 3 that we've cast tonight.
Yeah, we do have our first series that has gone to 3 games, even though we saw perhaps the time length of 3 games in the first game of Sammy versus the Riddler. We do have our first series that has actually gone to 3 games, and it is currently 1-1 between Lightning and NYK. And it looks like we will have Abyssal Reef as our third map.
Indeed, we will. So one of the most classic maps created in the, modern time. First saw that map and was like, oh my God, stuff floats up. Science, how do they do it? And then after 10, 20 games I cast on, I'm like, okay, I get it. Stuff floats up. Then the observers think they're super cool. And they're panning over the stuff floating up. I'm like, wow, I'm so good at this. I'm like, yeah, okay. Get it. Well, let's go ahead and get into our third game of the series. Our orange Protoss player spawned in the upper left-hand corner of Abyssal Reef. This is Rival Gaming's Lightning. And
in the bottom right-hand corner, as the pink Zerg, we have Psystorm NYK. So yeah, as you mentioned, this is one of the more classic maps, I guess, in a way. It's been around for, I think, all of 2017 now, and we will be seeing it stay in the pool through BlizzCon. So this will pretty much be a year-long map choice, and it's one of those maps that, even though it's been around for so long, I don't see people clamoring for it to be leaving the pool at all. I think this is one of the maps that, leaving the aesthetics aside with the floating stuff and the shark and all that craziness, people really like how this map plays. There are definitely a lot of options in terms of, attack paths and different bases to take. It looks kind of big when you first look at it. I remember when I first saw this map, I was like, oh my God, this is huge. We've got 6 bases in each corner. But you realize that it's actually sort of a medium-sized map in terms of rush distance. There are some options for aggression, so it's definitely sort of a pretty well balanced, pretty all-around decent map choice. So one thing to mention about this game, we already have some deviations in terms of the opening builds. The Zerg going for a 3-hatch before pool, while the Protoss has thrown down a Forge. I don't actually think this Forge was in response. Maybe it was in response, as the Forge did start about 7 seconds after the third hatchery. So maybe he realized he could punish.
Proxy pylons out there. Hatchery's not done.
Yeah, neither pylon has been scouted, and there's actually a pylon both at the natural and the third.
Yeah, and I hope if our observer can throw down the vision that the proxy or that the hatcheries have, it's not enough to see these pylons and the cannons going down. Now, it's finally enough to see the cannons on the natural expansion, but still the cannons at the third have not been scouted.
Right, yeah, we do have cannons going down at both bases. 5 of them in total, 2 at the third and 3 at the natural, and it looks like, I mean, the spawning pool is not done yet. There's nothing that he can do about these cannons at the natural even, and if these all go up, and he actually, Lightning makes a really nice move and cancels one of the cannons at the third once the hatchery is canceled, so he's leaving one cannon there to prevent the base from continuing to go up, but, you know, not investing any more than he needs to, and NYK now choosing to expand to the north, and, you know, obviously that's a pretty big risk to take here in the early game.
Yeah, he also has 2 drones that are just going to have to chill there for the entirely long process of morphing that hatchery up there. Wow, this is very effective. I haven't seen this, you know, cannon rush strat in a while, but this time it's really working out.
Right, and, you know, as we noted earlier on, I feel like this was perhaps in many ways a reactionary cannon rush. He went for that gateway first and then threw down the forge, and just took the opportunity because he saw that third hatchery was built so early. And NYK has now built an evolution chamber. It'll be interesting to see if he uses this to go for ling drops, as I would expect, since he hasn't started any upgrades on it, and he's got a couple overlords positioned sort of on the left side near the Protoss main. But the Protoss is going for a 1 base follow-up, since he knows the Zerg is, you know, either on 1 base or is taking a very dangerous second expansion. And actually, he's found this expansion here at the top, and we'll be starting 2 cannons there as well. And with only 2 drones here to defend it, you know, there is not really going to be any way for him to deal with these cannons. He is going to immediately send these drones to attack the cannons and start a pair of lings, but I think one of them, these cannons at least, will get up uncontested.
Yeah, I think if you have 3, I think 3 is the number. If you have 3 drones from the time the cannon starts, then you can take it out, but certainly not when there are 2 of them there. And really, what is NYK going to produce to deal with the cannons? It's going to be either Zerglings, Roaches, what else could you have? Like Ravagers, nothing that shoots Oracles. And it's not even an Oracle, it's a Void Ray now on the way for Lightning.
Wow. Interesting choice here, and actually another interesting choice is NYK. The way he's doing this is actually, he's getting +1 ranged attack on his evolution chamber, first of all, which is a little bit of an interesting choice. And then he's also using his overlord to lift his queens out of the base. And I'm kind of curious what he's got planned here. You know, obviously these queens can't get across the map without creep or overlord speed or some sort of other vehicle. Slow overlord drops will not quite take these queens across the map. But he is going to drop some lings down as well. And perhaps this is just going to be to clear his expansions. But I mean, at this point, I'm not really sure how he's going to play a macro game out of this. Lightning is going for a 1 base play himself, and a 1 base Protoss is definitely better off than a 1 base Zerg. But,
what is this Void Ray doing at home, though? Like, that's my confusion.
Yeah, I think at the very least, perhaps he should be looking for some overlord kills. NYK actually even has no idea that his opponent hasn't taken a natural yet. So he is reestablishing a second base himself over at this third, but, you know, still with nearly 1,000 minerals in the bank without any production to speak of. I'm really curious about how both these players are handling it. You know, I would have expected Lightning to perhaps follow up with an expansion. I feel like if he had expanded, it would be pretty much uncontested here. And NYK, you know, it seems like he's been a little indecisive about how he wants to follow this up.
Seems like he's been a lot indecisive about how to follow this up. For Lightning, he's building now gateways out on the map. This is a very like style where you go for something crazy that inhibits your opponent, and then you're just like, well, I just gotta build some stuff in some places, and, you know, finally now NYK is going to be able to bust out and secure things like his natural, his third base, and get things up and running. But behind this, I feel like Lightning has really knocked himself back to the Stone Age. I mean, he has Space Age units, obviously, but he's not, he hasn't expanded, and I think that this is, his strategy flies directly in the face of that old adage from Aristocrates. He it says when you're ahead, you want to pull back and get more ahead. No. He's trying to kill him, trying to get this damage done, but it's not happening. And
this could even be a bigger disaster, as like 20 to 30 lings are running towards the natural, and they're going to just run right up into the main, as there is nothing positioned here at this ramp. There is a mothership core in the main, so he will have, some options to defend this mineral line, but these buildings are completely exposed. But at the same time, he's moving into the third, and these 2 Void Rays combined with Zealots, a little bit of a well-rounded force here, will be able to take out the third base. But at the same time, these lings will come back, There are 4 queens at the natural. It might be, not quite enough, but I feel like eventually this army might be able to be cleaned up. It's going to be a close call.
Yeah, it is going to be very, very quick. And I don't know, NYK is... He came back, I wanted to say, in a pretty good way. He's able to get his third and his natural up. Okay, well, he's kind of stabilizing. Well, I don't know. Maybe he relied too much on the aggression being, a little bit lighter after that. And instead, all of a sudden, random 2 Void Rays, 1 Oracle, and a Phoenix. A little bit of everything on the ground there as well. Here we go.
Yeah,
or not.
I mean, a few more units walking over from Lightning, adding some more sentries to the mix along with the Adepts and the Zealots. He's got 3 Void Rays, but there is a Spore Crawler that will stay alive for a really long time. I feel like the air units are not actually what's going to potentially win this game for Lightning, but what's on the ground, and we do have some Hydras coming out.
Triple prismatically aligned Void Rays, those things kill just about everything insanely quickly. And here we go, finally seeing those alignments kick in, but he needs to be targeting down the Spore Crawlers or the Queens, and he's gonna lose every single Void Ray. The stuff on the ground's still alive, but it's actually not gonna deal all that much damage. Chunking through most of the army though, I think this might just barely be enough.
Yeah, the Hydras are going down as they come out, and he's not managing to quite get enough Hydras out to, keep them alive. Lightning is backing off a little with this drone build. Got another Void Ray coming in, but, we don't have any Warpins in sight. He's up to 900 minerals, and his lack of, reinforcement during this push may just cost him the game.
Yeah, there's no proxy pylon. I mean, there is one, but it's way up towards the top of the map. Needed it there with his army because all these Adepts that are just coming down right now were not there to fight with him when he needed. And now there's even more Spore Crawlers, there's even more Queens, more Transfusions. The Hydras are out now, and these do deal with air very well. Lightning's still on 1 base.
Yeah, I mean, this is pretty much all in, even though the Zerg is only on 20 drones. I mean, Lightning's main is going to mine out soon, and that's just going to be it, right? He's killing the pylon that he used to wall off his ramp in order to maybe look to take a natural. But, I mean, there are Hydras out now. There are, 7, 8 Hydras out to go along with these Queens, a couple Spores. The Void Rays aren't going to be a threat. So unless Lightning makes really good use of these force fields here to kill off the Hydras, I'm not sure if it's going to quite be enough.
I'm not sure either. Those sentries just shining their little sentry flashlights at the Hydras. It's going to illuminate not only the Hydras, but the now glaring problem that is occurring here for our Protoss player. He's totally mined out just about in his base. He's got, let's see, 200, 200, 200. Yeah, just a couple hundred resources on the remaining mineral patches, and his natural is just now starting. This is just not a great place for him to be. Our Zerg player is still holding on.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, only 24 drones. I mean, if he does manage to get that natural up, there's no 3rd base in sight for the Zerg. So even though, this looks pretty bad for Lightning, I almost feel like he could expand and pull back, and it could turn into somewhat of a more normal game. I mean, it's really hard to tell at this point because... the Zerg's got that lair tech out with those Hydras. He doesn't have the Hydra upgrade, though, so these Hydras are a little bit weak. And his drone count is really just so low that, any 3rd base will take a while for him to get saturated. I mean, look, he's not even mining gas in his main anymore because he's got a 600 gas bank because he's just been so mineral poor this entire game. So, yeah, certainly a curious game here.
Okay, wow, what am I even saying? The natural expansion, let me start this over again. Natural expansion is just now coming up for our Protoss player Lightning. He'll transfer almost all of his probes down there just to try to get it up and running again. This still means he's still basically on only 1 base, but at least it'll last a little bit longer as it has never been mined from before, so.
Right. Yeah, I mean, on one hand, Lightning's really in trouble because his opponent has Hydras and he has no way to deal with them at a very basic level. I mean, he's got these Adepts and these Sentries, so he can, if the Hydras move out, he'll be able to fight, but he's not able to attack here. He's not able to attack into these Hydras, most likely, unless NYK takes a poor engagement. Wow. But at the same time, does he need to attack? NYK is on 20 drones still, and, 25, and they're both on essentially one mining base. And in the long run, I feel like that will favor the Protoss. But NYK does finally move over to take a third. Lightning is following this up with Psionic Storm, which could be really strong in such a situation where they'll probably both have more gas than minerals, since those geysers take a bit longer to mine out than the mineral fields in the main. But I do feel like if he's going to want to continue this game, he's going to have to take that third. He is getting charge as well, so he'll go for perhaps Storm along with Zealots. And it's really hard to say because I have no idea what is going on here.
I'm so confused. Also, like, why did he leave like 3 sentries back at his proxy location? He finally pulled them back. I'm like, okay, well.
Oh yeah.
It's Psionic Storm. See, clearly this entire time it's all building up to a Psy-Storm build. I don't know, man.
Got to counter the Psy-Storm of your opponent's team with their own Psy-Storm, I think that's it.
There's so much wrong with what you just said. Like, I can't even begin.
I think that's got to be it. We do have a third Nexus going up for Lightning, so he is going to sort of try to bring this into a little bit more of a macro game. Both players finally reaching the 30 worker mark for the first time. 14 minutes in.
14 minutes.
Have a pretty sizable army on both sides. I mean, they've both kind of just been slowly building up this army. NYK is hitting 43 drones now, so he's going to take a pretty comfortable economic lead unless Lightning keeps building up these probes. But at the same time, with these storms and force fields, if Lightning can control this well, he definitely has the opportunity to win a fight. Now that he's got the storm, I think that gives him a much higher potential of actually, cutting through those hydras quick enough. But, it's still far from a given. This army that he's got will require pretty careful control to make good use of both all of these force fields and the storms. I think in order to win a fight, he needs both of those to work together. Like, he needs to get some force fields off and get the storms off on top of the hydras that are trapped. But he's not moving out, so maybe we won't see a fight. Maybe we'll just see both of these players sit on 3 bases.
Now you decide to macro. You mine out your entire main. You even mined out both of the gas geysers too. And now this is our opportunity to go into the macro game. All right, man. We just kind of skipped the first 15 minutes of the game.
We can pretend. We've got a lurker den on the way for NYK, so that will be his next transition. This could be pretty effective. There are a lot of adepts and zealots, as well as, of course, the fact that the lurkers aren't really as quite heavily impacted by the storms or the force fields. Well, not at all by the force fields. At the same time, we've got +2 range coming out for NYK. I feel like, it's going to depend a lot on Lightning's ability to take a good engage. As I've, pretty much been saying, I feel like he should be looking for an engage, because I feel like the way his army works right now, he's got all these spellcasters. You kind of want to not necessarily just keep their energy down, but make use of the spells over time. They don't really, force field and storm don't really shine in a quick engagement where everything's decided in 5 seconds. They shine because you can kind of use them to whittle down the units and pick off units one by one and get a couple storms to soften them all up. And then you take the big engage. So, being so passive with this army perhaps means that he's just going to play this into a later game, but I'm not sure how he's going to do that.
It surprises me that for a player like Lightning, who literally built a forge as one of his first few buildings, he has no upgrades. So, right. I feel like for Protoss, there used to be those Protoss Deathball memes back in the day where you just get Wings of Liberty, you max out on Colossi, and you just run across the map killing everything with Colossi and Void Rays. That's not the case anymore, but it can be if you get that 3-3 from having your forge so incredibly quickly. Instead, that did not happen. And now Lightning's army is made up of lots of gateway units. And of course, there are a couple of Archons and a couple of Void Rays, a couple of Immortals, just smatterings of other tech. But it's also not in a great position to stop all these Zerg from running into the third.
Yeah, the Hydras are moving across the map as well, and I don't think Lightning has caught wind of quite how much this may be committed. And, the the Storms will deal with the Hydras to some degree, but I almost feel like there are just going to be too many for him to reasonably get off good Storms on all of them. Maybe he will. It's certainly not impossible, but we now also have some Mutalisks on the way for our Zerg player, so that will mix things up even a little bit more. There is a Stargate out, of course, but we don't have any sort of Phoenix, or something that would deal with these mutas on the way. No Blink. There's really very little to deal with these mutas except for, maybe the Storm, but that's not really a way to deal with the mutas. It's kind of just a way to scare them off.
Indeed it is. Zerg comes forward, tries to deal damage, but really just scratches the shields here on the gateways. In the I keep talking about it a little bit. In the upcoming patch with the wacky new changes, I call them wacky not as a derogatory term, but just because they are so strange to think about. Pylon overcharge no longer exists, so you won't be able to have your whole army in one control group and still defend your base when Zerglings attack it. You're gonna have to actually have units there to defend, which is a big change to this style that I feel like almost every Protoss plays, especially here with Lightning, able to just overcharge to defend its base. No, you won't be able to do that anymore.
Right, yeah, Zerglings moving in once again. There are a couple cannons here now to support the overcharge. Lightning finally moving across the map, but I think this might just be not the time. He does have a solid group of Immortals and Archons to go along with the Storm, so it could work out. These Immortals tend to hold strong for a pretty long time. But NYK has moved all the way over to the bottom left as Lightning moved towards his base, and it looks like we may have some sort of base trade going on here. Muta's moving into the third as well as the Lings. A few Mutas will fall a little bit sloppily. Lightning trying to warp in a couple units to defend, but I just, it's certainly not going to be enough once the Hydras show up. The more units he kills, however, the better in this base trade scenario, and he's just going to go for it. He's moving into the natural, Immortals shredding through these buildings like nobody's business, but at the same time, these Hydras are going to make quick work of the third, and the Lings have now flooded the natural.
Half of NYK's Hydras are just not attacking. Now finally, he's going to move them forward. This is the base tradiest to base trades. Needs to also pull the probes to run out on the map and build pylons.
Yeah, I don't think there are actually any probes or buildings anywhere on the map other than his base, and I don't think he can get any out anymore. So I think that might actually just be it. Unless he manages to kill all of the buildings before he loses them, but I don't think that's going to be possible. It looks like NYK is just going to take this in an elimination race if it pans out how it looks at this point. NYK has started a hatchery at the top, so it's going to take a little bit longer for Lightning to clean everything up, and I think his base is just going to die.
Yeah, Lightning will lose every single building here. Even though maybe their armies are very similar, their bases are not. And especially after proxying so many buildings earlier on, he just doesn't have anything else.
Yeah, Lightning being revealed, so NYK now knows where the last buildings of Lightning are, and that is that they're nowhere except the top left-hand corner. And I think this is just it.
Yeah.
This building should fall, and that will end Game 3.
Wow, I finally witnessed a game, Poke Bunny, where a player is eliminated by having all of his buildings killed. That's I think a lot of times you can see that coming, but rarely does a player ever let it actually be the reason that the game forcibly ends itself. Right. That's going to do it. Wow, what a way to, take our series. This has been sort of the over the bridge and through the woods to, KOTN we go. But what a way. In fact, actually looking at the graphs of that game at the end for workers, NYK built over 84 workers, whereas Lightning never built more than 40. So he was very light, very Spartan on the way that he played that game. And in the end, NYK sort of righted the ship and was able to stabilize and then come back and take the win.
Yeah, just barely managed to take the win, and we're going to take a look at the brackets here to catch up on the games that we have missed. Looks like in the winners bracket, NYK is the last player advancing to the winners semifinals. In the top half, we've got BioIce versus Buster, a Terran player that we haven't seen yet. And in the bottom, we have NYK versus Sammy, both of the Zerg players that we have in fact seen today. Taking a look at the lower bracket as well, we have a little bit less progress having happened. We've got the Riddler taking out Space Jam 2-1, Space Jam managing to take a game off the Riddler, despite, perhaps not being the favorite there. We have Lightning versus Witowski, Steadfast versus New Brigny, and the Donald taking down Powerfoe to move up to losers round 3. So, got a little bit of progress still to go in the losers bracket, of course, with just now these round of 8 players falling, like Lightning, falling now to that losers round 2. But I think our next match may be a winner's semifinal. I'm not 100% sure about that, but it looks like we're getting ready to have those get started. If I think BioIce versus Buster may have started already, so we may be getting the other one. But yeah, we should have some good games coming up.
Indeed, there should be. So I think we are going to head out to a quick break while we look for our next series.